Welcome, Space Cadets! We're back with Shadow Empire. This is the Oceania DLC, as you can see down through here. We're playing with version 1.20B. Now, there is actually a C version out, but I'm playing with the pre-release, I guess, the press release version prior to launch. There will be some changes with what we see through here. Vic, the developer, this is all put together by a single developer. Can you believe it? The complexity of this game, the intricacy of it, and the immersion of it, all from the genius mind of one person, which is just incredible. So anyway, this is if you've never seen Shadow Empire, I've never played it before, this is mind-blowingly interesting. Like if you like Dwarf Fortress, this is the closest game to Dwarf Fortress in terms of sort of building up a whole narrative around, like extremely different narrative around different planets. It's not the same game every time you play it, because of the way that the actual planets are constructed. Anyway, I don't want to get off the beam too much, although I will point out this is going to be an episode 0. An episode 0 allows me to waffle on, waste time, just do whatever I want to do. And you guys either can decide to skip over this video, which if you're looking for gameplay, I would suggest that you do that. So skip past it. Otherwise, sit back and we'll just go for a bit of a ride and talk about what this DLC does bring in. So it's going to be a boring episode for most of you, I would guess. So I expect that there'll be a number of you that will be skipping out about now and looking for episode 1, which should be, if you're watching this on the day of release, episode 1 should be coming the next day. So that would be my plan, hopefully. And these will be coming out a day or two before the Oceania DLC does come out. So if you're watching this one, the Oceania DLC does come out on March the 30th, 2023. So if you're watching this in the future, then it's going to be a little bit different. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is there are no navies. There are no navies in this particular release. Even though it's an Oceania DLC, it's not just oceans that you actually have added to the game. It's actually is still a whole very, very complex system around existing entities that actually sort of that control the oceans of the world. Think of the Pirates of Tortuga back in the 1700s, or the East India Company, for example. Those sorts of companies that controlled like massive areas where it was very difficult. Particularly the East India Company, I guess, would be the closest sort of comparison to sort of think of with this. The East India Company was as big as most countries at that, at the time of its heights. It was just an incredible maritime entity, and this is what the maritime trade houses are in the game. They compete against each other. They control sections of the ocean, and so the premise is that you really wouldn't have the chance to compete with them because they're so powerful in the oceans that they operate in. They actually can either like each other or don't like each other. They can go to war with each other. So there's all this stuff actually happening. It's almost like having these different sort of factions that are sort of playing on the game, and you happen to be sort of more land-based, they're more ocean-based, and you're dealing with them to then sort of try to get what you need, and they're dealing with you to get what they need as well, because they also want to take over the rest of the oceans. So it's a very, very interesting dynamic. So don't be put off by the fact that there's no navies, even though that's the one thing I really, really wish that this thing actually did have. Hopefully it'll come at some point in the future, but at this point in time, we've got the maritime trade houses, and I must say, I am super, super impressed with the way that they've been put together, and I'm super impressed with the dynamism that they actually add to the game, the way that they actually are constructed. It's very, very, very cool. Anyway, we're going to get into it. But before I get started, very importantly, I want to thank my Patreon supporters and anyone who does support the channel, whether that be through buying the merchandise, through the links in the description. Actually, I should point out, I am playing with one of my mods in this particular game, and there is a link down below to my ko-fi.com/DazTactics store, where you can actually pick up the mods for free. So if you're wanting to have a look at any of the mods, I've got a couple of mods down there for Shadow Empire, which add graphics to the actual maps. They make it so much easier, for me anyway, and that's what people tell me as well, that they really, I can't play without it, to be honest. It tells me what the terrain is underneath like anything that's important in terms of combat, it will then sort of highlight with a little icon what it actually does do. Now, there's one icon I really, really wish that this had actually had. I'm hoping it will come at some point, and that's to let you know where the landing areas are for invasion across the oceans. We don't get to see that. You can sort of pick it. I can sort of show you how to look for it when we get into it, but it's very, very hard to spot just sort of, without actually really going through every single hex. So I will still show that when we get into the game itself. That'll be during the playthrough. Again, if you are just really wanting to watch gameplay, that will be coming in the next episode and beyond. Also, if you actually are just wanting to watch gameplay and you're wanting to watch what happens to the Maritime Trade House, the first 1 or 2 videos probably won't have any interaction with the trade houses at all. That seems to come after you've sort of developed your initial economy and sort of once you're underway, the maritime trade houses will then become much, much more prevalent. I'll try to put descriptions in the videos when we start to deal with the trade houses around the types of things that we actually are dealing with. And they do a lot of different things. There's so much different things we can do with the trade houses. So I will try to put that into the descriptions just so you can sort of have a bit of look at, so if you want to skip to a particular video, yep, that's fine. I do understand it's hard to be watching these sorts of series the whole lot all the way through, but I would urge you, if you are trying to figure out whether you want the DLC or not, don't rely so much on the way that the game is played from the first few in this series. It's probably going to be sort of more around sort of episode 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there that will sort of start to then be dealing with the trade houses on a meaningful level. Okay, so we've got the, so that's all out of the way. Yeah, as I say, the mod, there's a link down below to the mod at mycoffee.com page. It is free, so just go and basically download it from that location. But again, a special thank you to anyone who has supported the channel and me, which is very, very much appreciated. All right, so also consider liking and subscribing if you do enjoy this sort of content. I love making it, but it's but the YouTube algorithms, like, because I do explain things a lot, the YouTube algorithm doesn't like that. It doesn't like long form content, and the only way I can get around that is to have likes, subscribes, comments and things like this. The more interaction that you guys can provide, the better off these videos then do within YouTube itself, because YouTube has to decide whether to promote these videos or not to promote them. And when we do a long series like this, by the time I'm sort of like 5, 6, 7 episodes in, the viewership goes right down, and so they punish the whole series. And so this is why the YouTube algorithm, if any interaction, really does help enormously. Okay, and that costs nothing except time. Which if you're still watching at this point, we're 7 minutes in, nearly 8 minutes in, we haven't done anything yet, and if you're still watching at that point, it means you do have time. You've got time on your hands. I'm being facetious. Let's get into it. Let's show you the different sorts of worlds that we can create. So we'll just go to Start New Game. Now, I will be doing the setup for where we're going to be playing after we do all of these worlds. I'm just going to go through the different types of worlds. We go to the Oceania tab in through here. By the way, the unclassified planets can use the maritime trade houses if it triggers enough oceans. So you'd have to, I'll show you that at the end of this series, end of this part of it, so you can sort of see what to look for in terms of getting the maritime trade houses. So if we go to Oceania, now what I'll do through here is I'll just go through each one of them. We've got 7 classes that come with the Oceania DLC. We've got the Gaia class, the Attica class, the Proteus, Fontus, Thessala, Tethys, and a Hydroid class in through this side. The first 4 have got very similar algorithms, the way that they sort of are created, where there's a lot more land mass than the other ones that come in afterwards. So the Thessala and Theses class are much more sort of like island chains that you're going to end up with, and the Hydroid class is just a small planetoid with a lot of water on it. So that's going to be, so let's just start with the Gaia class. This is your Earth-likes. Doesn't mean it's going to have it, so you can see Earth-like planets with sizable oceans. Planets within this class can be quite diverse, but their key characteristics is that they're compatible or close to compatible with Earth-based life forms. So let's just go across. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to get it, but we'll just go continue. What I might do is I might just go partial in this instance. By the way, if you are playing the game, or before you do get the game, I would strongly suggest you go with Complete Fog of War. Actually, probably not. I'll go through the steps that I go through to figure out whether I want to play on it or not. Go with Complete After Colonization. If you don't actually have this one selected, When you've got the complete fog of war, when you start the game, it means that you have to then rely on the maritime trade houses to do a lot of scouting for you, and that adds a whole other element to it as well, which I think is great. So it feels good having that aspect, having the complete fog of war for the start, because you do then rely on aspects of the game to sort of then expose the world. So it is really quite nice. So like for example, if we know the map, we don't need to rely so much on the maritime trade houses to sort of then find areas for us to expand into. Whereas if we do have complete fog of war, then we have to rely on them, which is great. So we'll just go continue. Planetology. Now this will operate from sort of around around freezing, so around 0 up to around about, say, 40 degrees will be the temperature range of these particular planets typically. The planetary age can be like less than 1 billion years up to about 6 billion years. So we've got a wide range. I should point out the planetary age does a lot of things in the game, and no matter what planet you're playing. If you've got like a fairly young planet like this, you can expect taller mountain ranges, so you can expect to see more mountains. You can still roll and get less mountains, but that will be a big aspect of them. And the other thing that you're going to get is the more that you end up with the planetary age, so you end up with erosion essentially over the billions of years. But then the other thing is that you're more likely to generate life forms if you sort of end up with a planetary age of like 3-4 plus billion years. So 1.4 is not going to do much. If we just re-roll 5.8, so you can see there this is freezing at 5.8 billion. Let's just go with this one as an example, and so we'll just go continue. Now, when you get to this next stage, this is where you should choose whether you want to go with this particular planet or not. So you can see through here, we've got plains at 16%, but we've got a lot of mountains at 7%. We're in 77% ocean. So again, very much like Earth-like type planet. I mean, the Earth is 70%, so it's within Kui. What you want to do at this point is go to your mini-map and have a bit of a look. Now, what you'll sort of see through here, we've got big, long sort of snaking areas. Now, the longer the coastlines, when you're sort of looking at these sorts of locations, the more chance you have for invasions across the water. And so this would be a difficult one to play simply because you've got so much to protect. There's a little island in the middle through here, another island up the top, another island over through here. So it would be an interesting game to play, but the algorithm is sort of making these big, long sort of peninsulas essentially all the way through with what it's actually doing. With one large landmass, it does extend across the actual map itself. So in this instance, simply because of the invasions, I would be re-rolling to see what else we get. Less oceans. Mountains are still 8%. Just go to the mini-map. And this one, you do actually have a nice big land mass in the middle here, which does allow you then to sort of operate a little bit where the invasions wouldn't matter that much. You've got rivers that sort of go off the side, and you've got big, long sort of snaking areas back up through this side. Even in this one, I would probably this one would be okay. It wouldn't be too bad with what you have. You do actually have some connections in through there. When you then go to the next one, so this is just the basic geology of the planets. We just go continue. And now we have xenon and oxygen, and you can see there it's actually now has created a green, lush world with a glacier down in the very, very bottom there. This one may have a maritime trade house operating inside it. We can check that when we do come back through. Big oceans back up through this side. A lot of the small islands have now gone. We've just got some, sort of medium-sized islands. One great big long island chain through the middle of the map there. So that's sort of where we are with this particular one. We've got some jungles. Again, more sort of frozen territories in the north, and these glaciers in the south. So that's actually not bad. Let's just continue on. We'll just go continue. Oh, by the way, there was no sentience, even though there was there was a chance. So if I had kept on re-rolling, I think I would have found sentience fairly easily on that one. This is 24.1 million. I no longer worry about trying to generate the numbers. Whatever they are is what you end up getting. So I'll just leave that one where that is. And we'll just go continue. And we're left with just under 1 billion population back in through here. We do have a lot of farmers on this particular world. So you're going to find that this is going to be quite good for Terran farming, etc., etc. If If we just go back to the mini map again, we can we'll probably see, yep, there's got different sorts of territories in around here as well. So we've got like a territory that's formed across this way, another one over this way, a major in through that side, I think, another major at the top. So we've got a few different majors that have now generated on this particular world in different locations. And you can see it snakes all the way across. This one here has control all the way across here, which is very, very dangerous in terms of what it does do. If we just go back to random, go continue. So that's just a summary of it. Yeah, so it is a cold world, this one. But there's farming on it. And I'll go through how to check these sorts of things out. If we just click on OK, I'll just show you what the maritime trade houses are. We won't go this far with what we're doing after this particular part of it. And so this is where we would be starting in this particular one. We've got a land mass where we can see across, but everything is exposed. We can see exactly what's going on. So this is where, this is the Aphrodite Sea, the Aphrodite Sea maritime trade house up through this area, which is actually inside the Aphrodite Sea. Now, each of the actual sea zones, like if that's got a 1, there's probably going to be 2 that are actually part of what it does. Yeah, the Aphrodite Sea zone, they control this one as well. This is the second aspect of that one. So it goes from the pretty much from inside where we are all the way down to the other. In fact, there's a number 4 and a number 3 there. So this particular maritime trading house actually has got like a lot of the planet. Then after that, when we have a look back across, we've got the Morgana Ocean MTH. They're there as well. So not the Morgana, the Morana. They've got a fair few as well. So they may end up competing with each other for their sea zones. That one there is just considered a reservoir. It's too small to have a trade house operating from within it. I thought it may have it. Back over this side, yep, Aphrodite, back in through that area there, through there. And then, yeah, we're back to there again. So there's not that many trade houses on this particular planet, but it is interesting. So if we have a look and look at the reports, and then go across to the MTHs, we can then see the various maritime trade houses that are listed. And so if we have a look at the Aphrodite Sea Maritime Trade House, we can see that it operates all the way through this part of the map, which is really cool. I'll go through how this actually operates in the game, but this is actually just one aspect. I thought I'd show you this one now. You can see there that they're actually not the biggest. This other one is actually very, very big. We've got a couple of other small ones. Actually, that one's enclosed and that one's enclosed. So they don't really have access across. And these each trade house has got like a focus that they actually have. And so this is a fish whisperer. So you can actually get, so this maritime trade house has developed an almost supernatural bond with the maritime alien critters. The alien critters will help them during naval warfare. So they've got that aspect. If we have a look at the Morana Ocean guys, which actually control all of this aspect, these are autarchists, which are, this maritime trade house is not eager to sell its shares or to sign contracts. It sells a maximum of 25% of its shares and contracts and tends to be 50% more expensive. So very hard for players to break into this particular maritime trade house. The way it works is that you do actually end up buying shares in the trade houses and then try to push them into how they then operate in the various zones in the ocean to then further what you need to do. So, for example, if we're trying to get across into this particular landmass over here, we would need to deal with whatever trade houses are, like we would be able to do it from here through to here, or we could actually do it if we actually had focused on this one through here, whether it would be the Morana Ocean to go this way, or the Aphrodite Deep. Aphrodite Sea. So there isn't actually Aphrodite Deep as well, which is a bit confusing. Let's have a bit of a look at some of these others. We've got Money Grubbers. The Money Grubbers is run by maritime Scrooges. They tend to pay lower dividends and quickly change their trade policies to abuse or worse. So they're not very, very good. We already looked at Aphrodite Sea. The Fish Whisperers, the Hermes Bay, up through here, deep sea miners. So these ones specialise in extracting rare metals. We'll have an extra supply of mostly this item. And then the Aphrodite Deep, back over through here, they're also deep sea miners as well. There's a whole lot of different ones. Ex-pirates, all sorts of stuff. So you've got a real lot of flavour with the way that these come in, and they do impact how you then operate with them. Like if you've got an ex-pirate, expect pirate invasions in whatever coastline they have access to. This is why you don't want to have thin sort of snaking land masses, because you'll end up with pirates all over you, and it's not fun. I can tell you that. Anyway, we'll go back across. Let's just go back out. That just explains a little bit about what we're going to be seeing when we do play the game. But as I say, I like to turn that off initially so we don't get to see any of this. You miss out on a lot of the interaction. Now, we do actually have this maritime, this has got Hermes Bay Maritime Trade House up through there, and we also have the Aphrodite Deep Maritime Trade House. Now, these are essentially big, massive lakes. They don't break through here, so they can't really fight against the others. So they're going to be sort of, and if you did have control over these, if you had access to the ice on these areas, you would then be able to almost have a monopoly with their shares eventually. That would cost you practically nothing to invest in that one. But if we were using, for example, the Aphrodite Sea, and when we start the game with the full fog of war, we don't know how big these things actually are. So we only know what we can see. So if, like, we would have maybe thought, oh, this is just a small little MTH. Although you can sort of get a bit of a look, because this does give you a clue as to, you know, that they've got more than one zone. Particularly, you sort of have a look to see if you have a look down, like that's 5. You know, so you'd be thinking, if you saw the 5, you'd be thinking, oh, okay, this is a big trade house. So it would be certainly worth sort of investing in that one through there. So if you can sort of, if you can try to figure it out, like if this one over this side, that's a 4. So we'd be aware of the 4 there. We'd be aware of the 1 there. So we would probably end up defaulting to going to this side over here, I would think, just in terms we would sort of think it's bigger and more powerful. But anyway, that sort of is the other rub with that is that any other major that fronts onto that one, and there's a major in through there, for example, they would then also have access to any auctions that go on with the actual shares themselves. So you need a lot of money in this game. Anyway, let's 20 minutes in, and we've only just really had a look at the Gaia class worlds. It just gives you a bit of a feel for these sort of worlds. Let's go back out. So we'll quit the game, start a new one, and we'll talk about each tile. I won't go to that degree anymore. I'll just sort of open it up so you can sort of see what they look like. So we'll just go to Oceania. So that's the Gaia class worlds, Earth-like. The Arctica are interesting because these are freezing cold, very much similar to the Earth-likes. Just go continue. So you're going to have low temperatures. If I re-roll, -18, -11, -25. So the colder the temperature that you roll through here, the more ice you're going to have on the planet. And the more ice you have, it means that the maritime trade houses have a much less impact on your game, but you then have to cross the ice, and that can be difficult. So it is a frozen world, essentially, that you're playing on, which is quite cool. So if we just go continue, again, you can still roll, depending on what you have with the planetary age, you can still get what you need. This, you can see this one's got like very high mountains all the way through, not very many plains, oceans. Now, with mountains that much, I would probably be rolling again, but we'll have a quick look and see. So yeah, we've got like one big island through there and another big island through there. So 2 big islands, but let's have a look and see what it does. Even though the mountains would be debilitating in this particular instance, it would actually be a very, very hard game to play because you just wouldn't get past these mountains. You would be relying, if you could, to actually then get the maritime trade houses to help you transport around the mountainous masses. You could still actually end up with other things, but your logistics would be just too expensive to build roads. So going by ocean would be the way to do it. Let's just go back across and we'll continue. And so what we'll sort of then find is that with the biosphere and through this side, if we just go back to the mini map, we now have, actually this is not too bad. We've got like big zones where the maritime trade houses can actually operate. We have ice that then continues all the way across. That one may thaw there every so often, depending on what actually does go on. And again, you've got now access using the ice to get around on the poles with the maritime trade houses operating through the middle of the map. I'll leave it at that. We won't go any further with this one. Let's just go back and restart. And click on Oceania. So that's the Arctica class. The Proteus class is a water world of deserts. And so this one here, if we just go continue and continue, again, we're going to see the temperatures don't matter that much. They won't be freezing, like if we just re-roll. We're not going to get extra... Oh, see, there was a freezing. we got, okay, let's just do it with a freezing one. I don't think we're going to see ice form, though, in the poles. So if we just go, but if we, actually, no, let's go with something that's a bit hot. 28, that'll do. This will be a fairly warm planet. Also 4.6 billion years. This is a planet of deserts, with oceans and deserts. So we'll just go continue. And again, depending on what we end up, 4.6 billion years, there's a good chance of life in this one. So the mountains have diminished somewhat because of erosion. If we just go continue in this, actually, I'll just have a quick look to see if it's worth it. This is one massive landmass. So is it worth it? Don't know. Probably be a bit boring. So in this case, I'll be re-rolling until I at least get 2 land masses. So let's just re-roll. See what we end up with. 2% mountains, 57%. Let's have a look at the mini-map. One massive landmass again. Quite often you're going to find that this will just keep on happening. So this is why I would just keep on having a bit of a look at that one and just re-rolling this element of it until you get a split. That way, at least, in 44%, that's going to still just be one big, massive landmass. There we are. So there is still oceans available, but they're not really going to feature in this game. So if you are wanting to play with the maritime trade houses, the benefit of playing with these sort of worlds that are like this, where there's just one big landmass, is that you don't have to rely so much. Yeah, we've got an island there, but that's it. There's still one massive landmass. With what we're sort of seeing through here. It doesn't always have to be this way. We can re-roll. But it's, I wish there were sliders so you can sort of try to push the algorithms around a little bit. I think that's also being considered, just so you can ultimately not just have to rely on these random rolls. Yeah, one massive landmass again. So these would just be almost like a traditional game, but with the access of maritime trade houses off to the side, which would hardly have any impact in the actual game itself. Just try one more re-roll. Just see if we can actually get like a split, a couple of continents. Mini-map, 61%. That's a good chance. No mountains. Nope, still one massive landmass with a few little islands, and that's about it, really. The islands won't really have any real bearing on the game. It'll all be just happening here in the big deserts. So if we just go across, I'll do one more roll. It is an episode 0, so we can take our time and just fart about. Which is what we'll do. We'll do one more re-roll. Actually, I'll do a re-roll until I get over 60% again. Actually, 61%. Let's have a look. Actually, I'll just go continue no matter what this one is, just so you can see what the actual landmass does look like. Because at this stage, this is just the underlying geology. I'll just go continue. Now remember, this is 4.6 billion. We do actually have grasses. And we actually have sentient life forms. We've got like crab sapiens that have actually risen. And then we've got the Akafor crab, a land-dwelling large 4-metre carnivore. So these are going to be tall. These are going to be big. So we've got sort of like a crab in here along with these. We've got argon and oxygen. It's insidious for the atmosphere for us, but it actually does have atmospheric farming hazard is none. So this would actually end up with lots and lots of farming. So if we just go, if I just now go to the mini-map again, so you can sort of see through here, there is grasses, it's very open. We've still got some geological formations, but there's going to be sort of like big rocky deserts and things. We're not seeing sand deserts, which is interesting. Quite often you'll sort of end up with sand deserts, but there are dry areas in the middle of the land masses themselves. So anyway, that's still an interesting one. There's only one little choke point there that connects the two areas. This one actually would be viable if you actually built a if that was protected where you couldn't break through there, for example, if you've sort of already taken like one landmass, then yeah, the maritime trade house at that point would then become viable to then invade across somewhere else into the other landmass. So that would be an interesting way to play. So this one would still be a viable map because of that one choke point. That would be important to get there at some point. If you could break through that, then you wouldn't need to rely on the maritime trade houses. So when you have complete islands, then you do need to rely on them. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. Now, the way I've got it, did I set it up so that we don't see it anymore? If I just go continue. No, I didn't. Okay, 12.4 million. If we re-roll until we get like over, say, 100 million, 2.2. Come on, give me big numbers. Give me big numbers. I'm trying to... God, it just doesn't want to play, does it? 22. We are sort of seeing groups down there. They're not farming. 11. Come on, give me some numbers, please. 2.3. It just doesn't want to play today. 30 is about as good as I'm going to get, I think. Now that should, because there was no impediment to farming, we should sort of see, yeah, we've got small groups of expert farmers for begin arriving on the planet. If we have a bit of a look at this one, just click on that one, we should start to see some farms developed back in around the place. Actually, we're not seeing actually open air farms. I thought we would at this stage. No, none of them are actually farming. Interesting. So that's this particular planet does not. That's the landing zone. But yeah, no open air farms, which is, as I say, quite fascinating. So anyway, let's just go back and we'll restart again. So that is the Proteus class, which is sort of like a more dry type planet. Then we have the Fontis class. This is a wet planet, as in it's a lot of rainfall, a lot of jungles. So planets have an abundance of oceans, rainfall, and forests. These planets are greener than good old Earth. Alien life forms are as good as guaranteed. So this is a bit more of a jungly type planet. So if we just go continue, I'll keep it partial in this instance as well. So we'll sort of see, we're going to see hot temperatures whenever we re-roll. Reasonably hot anyway, sort of like, I'll just get it like a 24. That's 15 is the average for Earth in the game. Like if we were recreating Earth, we'd have 15 in there. 5.6 billion. If we don't end up with sapient humanoids in this one, it would be surprising. So let's just go continue. And we're sort of seeing, if we just go back to the mini map. So again, we're seeing one massive landmass. And again, I would be trying to re-roll at this instance to try to get a bit more. 67%. There's a good chance we might end up with some islands. This is good. This is actually interesting because we've now got a landmass, essentially, and 2 islands in the middle there. So this would be an interesting one to play because you'd be relying on the maritime trade houses to move you around. Let's just go forward with this one. By the way, the white numbers you see is a rainfall. So these are extremely high rainfall. The black numbers are the height above sea level. So this is a fairly flat planet. There's not really much we can sort of see. If I just go into the middle of one of these, like 110 meters high is really nothing at all. So this is a very, very flat planet. We'll just go back across. And if we then just go continue, so now we start to sort of see the, if I just go back and click on random, we do actually have the Super Ambly Chordata sapiens. So this is actually a reptiloids has actually been formed on the actual planet itself. And so we're going to see sort of jungles on these planets. So this is before colonization. Still big open grass areas in through there. There's one of the other islands. So to get from there to there, we have to employ a maritime trade house to take us there. This one as well is interesting. Another landmass in through there, lots of jungles and swamps up through this side as well. So we've got the different land masses. Let's just continue with this one and we'll just go across to, where are we going? Just go random. So these are, there's 0 value in alien tissue nutrition, which is interesting. I'll show you why when we get into the actual game itself. The atmospheric farming hazard is none, so we can actually farm on the planet. It is deadly. There's xenobiological hazards which are deadly to us. Anyway, we'll just go continue. And 17.7 million, that'll be okay. We'll just go continue again to see where we end up if we were playing this one. And I quite like the look of this one actually. We'll just go continue now. And we'll just start the game and see where we would end up. Skip past all of this. Okay, so in this instance we just start in this little area at the top, in through here. Dismiss, and so we're in the swamps. We do actually have a Dream Ocean MTH, a Dream Ocean. So Dream Ocean is really the only one that's got connection to our areas, so we don't get to see any others. This is the Aries Great Lake MTH up through that side as well. So to get across these other islands, we would then need to be employing these, but in the meantime we could actually then just go down and try to take over more of this particular region back and through this side. So we get to sort of see a lot of what does go on. But we'd have to then protect, you really do have to protect what you've got. Now, one thing you'll notice in through here, we've got like a little port, And so the port in through this instance is essentially a privately run port. If I just go and click on that one so you can see it there, it's got 0 food coming in, and this is because there's no edible alien nutrition on the planet. Even though there's lots of creatures on the planet, we can't eat them. From whatever their makeup is, it's just not compatible for our stomachs, so we can't actually convert them into food. And so the fishing on this planet is worth 0. And if we have a look at their reports, I'll show you this when we get into game anyway, but just go to the help file, planetary statistics, and you'll see there's actually a new one for fishing. So fishing, you can do it, but it's not edible. So yes, there are animals to fish, but the nutritional modifier for fish is 0%, which means they're not edible at all. So we can't get anything at all from fish. That's interesting as well. Even the mining is going to be really, really hard on this planet. Methane is probably not good enough. Yeah, we can't do anything with methane. We don't have any deep core gases anymore. We do have solar panels, which is reasonable, but that's about it. Like, it's pretty crappy planet, to be honest. When we get to our actual planet, which I'll still do in this episode, if it takes an hour, it takes an hour. But we will actually eventually get to where we generate our own planet. Anyway, that's the jungle worlds. Let's go back out, quit the game, and start a new game. Eventually, there we are, Oceania. So that's those ones there have like largish land masses, which are probably a good way to play the game, simply because if the invasions come, you're going to have inland that you can escape to. Whereas on these next ones, the land masses are much, much smaller. So if we go to the Thessala class, the Thessala class, if we just go back again, just restart. The Thalassa class, if we hover over this one, these are water worlds. Planets in these classes have relatively little land masses. They can be quite varied and do not always sustain life. So it can be anything really. So let's just go and click on one of these. These are interesting. They are very, very interesting. It's just that they're hard to play. So only do these if you are wanting a challenge. Yep, that's okay. 5.7 billion, so there probably will be life. 88% oceans. You can see it's got an awful lot through there. Have a look at the mini map. And we're now sort of seeing, like, this isn't too bad, to be honest, for one of these sorts of worlds. You do have lots and lots of islands around the place. So it's fairly interesting, because you then need to sort of really split up how you then sort of tackle and operate across the areas. It's a difficult world. Like trying to protect this one when you've got potentially pirates landing on the shoreline at any point, or enemy invasions. It would be very, very difficult with these long snaking areas. Let's just go and re-roll. These I think will probably be one of the most interesting of the types of planets for you guys to have a bit of a look at. 88% again. Let's go back and look at the mini map. This is actually quite playable. We've got like a 1, 2. Essentially, it's sort of 2, but with a choke point. So say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 land masses. So you've got a bit there to choose from. These aren't too bad as well. There's a bit of width to them, which is actually fairly interesting. That all looks pretty good, actually. That's not a bad one. I don't know whether to play on one of these. I think if we play on one of these worlds, we'll try to generate where we've got a bit of guts around it, really, with what we're actually trying to do. So that's that one through there. So this is, if we just go back and just continue on, get the biosphere done, see what sort of life we've got. So we've got a 27-metre carnivore, a land-dwelling, very large 27-metre carnivore is sort of rolling around in through this one here. It's a water carbon-based and is nitrogen-breathing. So we do actually have carbon dioxide, nitrogen, again, 0 value alien nutrition. If we do re-roll, by the way, we can get sort of different things. This is an 8-metre, 0 value alien nutrition again. We'll just keep on re-rolling. Xenon and pH3, I don't know what that actually is. Herbivore back in through here. There's no impediments there. I'll just re-roll again, see what other things we sort of do get. Yep, this is we do actually have sentient aliens on this particular world. Carbon dioxide yet again. Just not able to get the oxygen. Here we go, Xenon and oxygen. So there's no impediment through here. The alien nutrition is low value, so it's not the greatest things for us to actually eat. There's cloud levels in through this side, and we do actually have crab sapiens as well. So these come from like an 8-metre herbivore. So if we just go continue, as an example. Look at the farming that's actually been developed on this particular world. So we've got like massive farming everywhere. So a lot of the forests have been chopped down during the colonization phase. In fact, this is predominantly a farming planet at this point in time. Farms literally everywhere. I love how varied this game can be based on what we sort of just re-rolled. Now, if we roll a different sort of colonization, we may find that it's not farming that sort of is the prevalent aspect to it. Yeah, there's even more farming. Everything is farming in here. Is there anything that's not farming? That's where it landed, but even so, we can still see that there's massive farms all the way around where the actual landfall occurred. So that's, again, just fascinating. There's a services sector. So Zessolar is a services sector back in through that side. God, I wish there was a way to export the maps out as a graphic. That would be so cool at this aspect. I might actually recommend that because it'd be really interesting to sort of just have like a plan of the colonization just for your own mucking around type aspect. Just to be able to reference it. I wonder if I can do that. I'll have to think of a way to do it. Anyway, we'll continue on. I might do that when we actually generate our world. I might sort of pause it and then try to actually get a copy of all of that. All right. So what we'll do is that's essentially those like where it does split off into these little islands. Let's just go back and restart again. And Oceania. And so the next one, the Tethys class, is much more like archipelagos. So more broken up typically. It doesn't always have to be that way, but it will tend to be more broken up. So if we just go continue, I won't worry too much about what we're generating down through this side. 1 billion, probably won't have sentient aliens. 66% if we have a look at the mini-map. See how much more split up everything is? We've still got reasonable land masses, but there's a lot more sort of fragmentation. So the algorithm here is using sort of like the fractals are sort of much greater with the generation of what's created with the land masses. So it's a much more craggy sort of style, which generates a lot more small islands. So again, this would be a hard one to play if you're trying to play this one. Just trying to sort of move your way around the actual landmass itself. So that's that one there. I'll just go to the next one, so you can just continue. And in this case, we do actually have microbiological herbivores, but nothing really growing at all. Just not enough time for anything to happen. So it would sort of end up being something where there'd be no fuel, there'd be no biofuel on this particular planet. So we'd have to then get our fuel different ways. There is actually still volcanization back in different areas. Okay, let's go and restart. So that is the Tethys class, which is the small islands, and then finally we have the smaller hydroid class. And I'm thinking of playing this one just so we've got like a limited map that we can then play on. So we'll just go continue, and then we will go continue here, I think. So we'll just go, and that's pretty hot, this one. 1.8 billion, 72% oceans. If you have a bit of a look at the mini map. So we've got some islands. We've got a largish landmass at the top there, an island down through this side. That's sort of what you expect. These are small planetoids. So we've got like a couple of islands across there and then just one big landmass. Let's just re-roll. See what else we can get. 57%. This is more interesting. We've got actually ourselves a one big land mass, but it is sort of split across through here. So this actually is a fairly interesting one where we've got like two land masses, one that snakes across. So this would actually be quite an interesting one to play, actually, to be honest. I think I might come back and look at this style again, and we'll play on one of these sort of worlds. What you do want to have, though, just for your own I guess your own sanity, is to at least have some inland areas that it's going to be difficult for anything that invades you to get into. If you've got too many narrow areas, like for example these sorts of areas, it's very, very hard to defend. So just be aware of that when you are going to be playing. All right, so that is that side. We'll just go across and generate the next one. Yep, so we've got Vera sponge, almost 1 metre long, herbivore. And so this one's only got grasses, essentially. Moss and grass is the vegetation level. So there's nothing big on this one. It's just going to be open areas. Again, it would be good ultimately for tanks. This would be an awesome tank battle planet or planetoid. It's only a small green planetoid in the middle of nowhere. So anyway, that's where we are with that one through there. So just go to random and just go continue. What sort of colonization do we end up having? 11.8 million in this instance. So we've then got the different regions that would then sort of come through. We shouldn't have too many population that would then come, I don't think, if we re-roll. 8.4, 9.2, 11.3. Yeah, so we're getting, like, they are sort of choosing that location a bit there. So anyway, that's the different planetoid classes. If we do go back and just for completion, if we do restart with this one through here, the random, what you're really looking for here is high water numbers. Otherwise, it's not really going to generate anything that uses the DLC. So if we just go across to continue, 44% should generate oceans. So if we have a bit of a look at this one, if we just go continue, but it doesn't have to. So this is, yep, this one's okay. I'll just go and continue all the way through. We won't have a look at this one. But these will be much more random in their approach and how they're actually then built. And there we go. We've got this one, the Apocalypse. We'll just get started, start the game. We'll just see how many maritime trade houses we get with 44% ocean. Okay. And in this case, just let that one go. So in this instance, we actually don't have access to the ocean, but we can see where it actually is. All we'd need is access to water. We'd be able to see the water there. So we'd probably go down there and think, okay, it is a lake, but it would give us access to water there. These are going to be, we do actually have like an MTH up through there, for example. I'll just dismiss this one. I'll have a quick look at the reports, MTHs. There's a lot actually on this planet. There's a lot. So that's actually fairly interesting. There's even one in the middle of the actual, no, that's us there. Yeah, so we've got all sorts of different MTHs across this side, which again, because we've got such a large landmass, the MTHs wouldn't play a massive role, but there is actually some islands out through here. Actually, no, that still connects all the way up. If we have a bit of a look at this one, like if we just zoom back out and have a bit of a look and see what actually does happen here. We've got the Poseidon Sea MTH, the Kvasir Bay, Aphrodite Ocean. We're back sort of into here again. So even this area through here, it may be better to be moving across into this one rather than trying to go all the way through that part of the planet to actually get to it. So this would be one where the maritime trade houses would play less a role, but it would still potentially be helpful just for moving around different areas. So it wouldn't be anywhere near as important as one where we've got lots and lots of islands. But you can see that you can actually, even with a random world, you can still generate some interesting starts for yourself. Anyway, guys, I'm going to now go and generate the actual start for ourselves. I think that's enough of an explanation as to what we're doing. We're up to 48 minutes. I knew this was going to be a long one. so I will start the actual generation of the planet right now. Right, here we are, Xenurus Prime, a planet in an almost perfect and extremely slow orbit around a yellow G2 star, with a tilt of 19 degrees and a radius of 2,000 kilometres, 2,409 million years ago evolution started. Currently the planet has very advanced life forms. Air pressure is 313 millibars. There are 0.14 million, so not very many people left at the moment, survivors of the Disillusion War. They're divided over 3 major regimes and 8 minor regimes, which is actually quite a few. To just go through it all, we've got a... I'll go through, actually, just go through what we actually did roll. So planetology-wise, we've got the 19 degrees you see through there. The average temperature is colder than Earth at 7 degrees, and the planetary age is 2.6 billion years, so a little bit younger than Earth. That's where we are. Solar irradiance looks fairly good, so that will be good for solar panels. Geology-wise, we then actually had 68% oceans, 32% plains. There's not very many mountains in the thing. Unfortunately, what I did was when I was recording the setup for it, I actually ended up having pause Just make sure I don't have pause on right now, which I don't. I had it on pause when I was recording, and then I had it on non-pause when I was actually just doing other things. So it wasn't a very good recording. So I thought I'd just come through and just summarise what we saw. At this point in time, it divided into 2 major islands on this particular landmass, of which we're on one of the major islands. And so it's actually fairly interesting. The planet is still geologically active, so there will actually be volcanoes somewhere on the planet. Biosphere-wise, we then sort of rolled this one here, where the largest aquatic animal is a 3-metre carnivore, resembles a vertebrate analogue. Its chemistry is water carbon based and is oxygen breathing. Now we can go across into a few of the other things, like if we go to biosphere and atmosphere. Actually, if we go to biosphere details, so we can see there we've got sea herbivores, sea carnivores, sea plants, and land plants. Do have land plants, but we don't actually have anything in terms of land animals. So it's only going to be like basically sea animals that we sort of see on the actual planet itself, and there's a whole sort of range there of different things that went extinct over time. At that point, we've got xenon and oxygen, and it's imperfect for breathing, but we can still breathe with filters. The xenobiological hazard is none, so we can just wear clothing outside as long as we're wearing the filters. The atmospheric farming hazard is none. The alien tissue nutrition, these different vertebrates and things are actually good value for eating, and the vegetation level is forests that we actually see on the actual planet itself. And this is actually where we're starting, back over here. Colonisation, we then ended up with 65 million colonists in through there, mainly split between agriculture and services, with a little bit in there of mining, into 14 different zones. If we then go to the apocalypse, we end up with 0.351 million. Actually, that's different than what it said. Anyway, that's all that's left at this point in time. Mainly scavengers with some farmers, so that's what we actually have. The planetary overview was the one we were just looking at before, which is great. So that's where we are. We are on Xenurus Prime. And if we just go and ditch that one and just sort of move this one back in, this is actually our start location. So we're sort of in here. We've got like the Damp Mire, which is a big swamp down sort of where we're established. There's a bit of farmland back in through this area. There's another farm that's been established back over here. It's an open air farm, and we actually have a port way down over here. Now I won't go through any more of this. In the next episode we'll then start to come through and do our evaluations. Again, just a reminder, if you are watching this wanting gameplay, the next video will be mainly explaining how to approach what we're going to be finding. I don't know, I haven't looked at anything just yet, so we'll actually have a look at that together, and we'll figure out the strategy of how we want to go forward. One of the great things about Shadow Empire, there's no one way to play the game, and there's no one right way to play the game. Every planet is different, presents different sorts of opportunities and threats, and so on and so forth. So we're going to have to manage that together. And this is as I say, one of the great things about the game. You can have basic principles about what to look for, but the actual techniques of what you're going to do will vary wildly depending on what parameters you've been given. So we'll evaluate all that in the next episode. That will probably take a full episode, really just going through the first turn. There's a lot to consider, a lot of choices we have to then make, but then after that things will start to ramp up. And if you're wanting to look at the maritime trade houses, look at maybe a couple of episodes. Like if you don't want to watch any of the setup, just go straight to the, in a few episodes' time, you'll then sort of find some maritime trade house interaction, hopefully. We'll evaluate that next turn anyway, or just go through briefly what's going to happen. But there's a lot to consider in the next episode. Thanks for watching. I will catch you then.